Hi everybody! Before I start talking about my article review, I'm going to ask this big question. What's the foundation of science? Go ahead, think about it for a second. Pause the video if you need some more time. Okay, got your answer? The answer I'm looking for is questions. When you have a question, especially if you use the scientific method, questions is what starts the scientific method. What if, and you keep going. So you're not going to know what you're experimenting on if you don't have your question. And that's what I'm talking about today. The article I'm reviewing is Prompting Questioning in Early Childhood Education. The authors are Esther Panos, Ana Carrion, and Jose Gallardo. The article is about learning how the children attempt to even ask questions. We all learn something every day, no matter what age we are, especially when it comes to children. The authors believe that the earlier the children learn how to ask questions, the better prepared they are for the future in terms of classes and for life. The experiment itself was conducted with 72 students, each in 3 different groups, from 3 to 4-year-olds, 4 to 5-year-olds, and 5 to 6-year-olds. Each child was given a pre-test, an intervention, a test after intervention, and a post-test 2 months later. So each test, especially the pre-test, was given like a guess who. They were given the card, all these houses were on it, or it would be apples, everything was different colors, whatever. And the researchers wanted them to ask, is your house big? Is your house small? Is it blue? Is it pink? Questions like that. Most kids, when they were given the pretest, would just ask, is your house this one? Which the researchers found a little disappointing. But that's why they had the intervention. The intervention taught them how to play this game and complete the test. So then by the time they took the test afterwards, some of the kids were starting to catch on to, let me ask questions. Let me ask this kind of question. And even 2 months later, they still had the same skill, which was great for them. In conclusion, the younger the child, the less they're likely to not ask questions. They'll be prompted to ask questions later on. Okay. So for the usefulness of the article, there was 2 examples that came directly to my mind. The first one is, as a teacher, you're supposed to model your thinking to all your students. Especially when most of the lessons are structured as I do, we do, and you do. Well, when teachers are doing the I do part, they gotta model their thinking to the students. How do you expect the student to complete the task that you want them to complete? So it's one personal example that I have is that, well, for me personally, I've never taught in a physical classroom, mainly like in a hallway. But so when I go with a team of people every week to an elementary school for a Rise to Read. What we do is we sit down with these kids and we have them look at these sight words and we have them say it. When the kid gets stuck, then we help them. We help them in different ways. What I try to do is get them to sound out the word. And if I show them how you sound out the word, then the kid may understand the word. By the next time we meet with them, then they won't be just stuck anymore. They'll actually be able to move on to the more harder words. And another example I have is I actually teach in a Sunday school with my church, and I have the kids. When I have the kids, I always open the floor for kids to ask questions as I ask them questions. So I expect them to answer my questions if they're paying attention. So the second example I have that comes to mind is when a kid is coloring. When a child's coloring on a coloring page, the first thing they're going to do is they're going to color all over the page. Until somebody watches them and may tell them, hey, why don't you try this? Then the kid might realize, what if I stay in the line? So then the kid can make a really pretty picture. And even with enough prompting and guidance, they may ask for other things like creative mediums, maybe like glitter, noodles, something like that. As a future teacher, it's essential for children as a future teacher, it is essential to help children to enable them to ask questions. Because when they ask questions, they get a valuable answer that can help them get a better understanding. So also when they think, it helps kids to expand their imaginations and get their critical thinking skills. for my critique of the article was pretty good, but I think there could be a few changes. One of them, for example, I think I would change the title. When I read the article, prompt and questioning seemed too vague, so I would have prompting categorical questioning in early childhood education using science. Because to me, that tells me that's what this article is about. The abstract did a good job explaining it along with the introduction, but the introduction to me was way too long. Unless if there was a literature review, and then I didn't catch on to where the literature review was, that may have been my mistake. And the author's purpose as well for me was a little hard to get until I got to the conclusion. But again, I think maybe it's because when I read, I may have misinterpreted a couple of things. Or, especially like when it came to the results. I don't know about y'all, but they used way too many fancy words. And I did not understand all those fancy words till I got to the table. And then my little light bulb came on, and then I understood what they were talking about. And when it came to the author's objective, too, same thing. It kind of was at the conclusion. So, the only other thing I would change is I would combine two different sections. One of the sections was called Science and Early Childhood Education Classes, and the other one was Science and Early Education at the education level. Combine those two. To me, those kind of meant the exact same thing. They kind of repeated themselves. Just shorten it up. You didn't need those extra fancy words. They didn't need that. And everything else was good. Even I really liked the author's conclusion. The authors were able to bring the words down, simplify it, and I also agree with the author's conclusion. The littler the kids are, the younger the kids are, they're not going to understand how to ask questions until you help them to learn how to answer questions. Well, that's my article review. Hope you guys enjoyed. Bye!